It was past midnight on July 2nd, 2014, in Uttar Pradesh, India. Under the cover of total darkness, a team of wildlife rescuers and veterinarians quietly approached a heavily scarred Asian elephant named Raju. For 50 long years, Raju had lived a life of absolute agony. He was a begging elephant. His spiked iron chains tore into his legs daily, leaving deep, infected wounds. He was beaten, starved, and forced to walk on blistering hot asphalt paths for tourist pennies. He had completely forgotten what freedom felt like, but as the rescue team stepped in and carefully cut the heavy iron spikes from his legs, something extraordinary happened. Raju did not panic. He did not lash out in aggression. He stood completely still. The rescue team looked up at his face in the dark, and they were utterly frozen in disbelief. Tears were streaming down his face. The founder of the rescue group later told global journalists, "The team was astounded to see tears roll down his face during the rescue. We knew in our hearts he realized he was being freed." The story instantly exploded across Western media, breaking hearts across the United States and the United Kingdom. But it also sparked a fierce, raging debate in the scientific community. Do elephants truly shed tears of joy and sadness? Or are we humans just projecting our own complex emotions onto the wild? The scientific truth behind elephant tears is far more mind-blowing than a simple yes or no, and it completely rewrites everything we thought we knew about the emotional lives of animals. Part 2. The biological reality. To unravel this mystery, we first have to look at the cold, hard biology. If you look at an elephant's eye under a microscope, you will find something fascinating. Biologically, elephants have the exact same hardware we do to produce liquid. They possess fully functioning lacrimal glands, and these glands are absolutely essential for their survival. Elephants live in some of the most brutal, unforgiving environments on Earth. Whether it's the scorching, dry savannas of Africa or the dust-filled jungles of Asia, their massive eyes are constantly bombarded by wind, sand, and flying insects. To protect their vision, their eyes produce a thick, lubricating moisture to wash away debris. But here is the bizarre anatomical twist that separates elephants from humans. Humans have a tiny internal plumbing system called a nasolacrimal duct. When we produce extra tears, that fluid drains internally down into our nose. That is why your nose runs when you cry. But elephants, they completely lack this drainage system because they have absolutely nowhere to store or drain excess fluid internally. Any moisture their eyes create has only one option. It fills to the brim and spills over the edge. It runs straight down those deep, weathered facial channels. So, when science looks at Raju, they argue his eyes were not crying from emotion. They argue his eyes were simply overflowing with moisture due to physical stress, dust, or the sudden removal of pressure. Case closed, right? Well, not even close, because while science can explain away the liquid in their eyes, no scientist on Earth can deny the haunting, undeniable reality of how elephants handle heartbreak. To see the true emotional depth of these creatures, we have to step out of the laboratory and look at how elephants communicate when tragedy strikes the herd. Part 3. The language of elephant grief. In the wild, death is a constant threat, but the way elephants react to death is completely unique in the animal kingdom. When a baby elephant dies, the mother's reaction is utterly devastating to witness. Wildlife biologists have documented mothers staying by their dead calves for days on end. They will completely refuse to eat or drink. They will gently nudge the lifeless carcass with their trunks, desperately trying to coax them to stand up, visibly shaking with grief. When the herd eventually must move on for survival, the mother will often physically drag the body of her calf with her, completely unable to let go. Field researchers have recorded these mothers making low, mournful, guttural distress calls. These are deep, infrasonic sounds, sounds that can travel for miles through the ground. But their grief isn't just limited to their own children. Elephants possess a profound and deeply unsettling respect for the dead. If a herd comes across the bleached, skeletal remains of an elephant, even one from a completely different, unrelated herd, they will stop dead in their tracks. Part 4. The Miracle at Thula Thula. To understand just how deep this bond can go, you need to hear the legendary story of Lawrence Anthony, a conservationist known globally as the Elephant Whisperer. In South Africa, Lawrence ran a reserve called Thula Thula. He became famous for taking in violent, deeply traumatized wild elephants that were scheduled to be shot. Through sheer patience, strict boundaries, and deep empathy, Lawrence managed to calm these angry herds. He spoke to them. He lived among them. He became their human anchor. The elephants grew to trust him implicitly. They loved him, but they remained completely wild animals. On March 2nd, 2012, tragedy struck. Lawrence Anthony suddenly suffered a fatal heart attack and passed away. He was miles away from the wild herds, resting inside his home. There was absolutely no physical way for the elephants to know he was gone. No human signals, no phone calls, no scent trailing through the bush. But what happened next left tracking experts and scientists completely speechless. Two separate wild herds of elephants, located in completely different parts of the massive reserve, suddenly stopped what they were doing. In a solemn, single-file line, they began a massive, purposeful march across the African bush. They marched for miles until they reached Lawrence's family home. Dozens of massive, wild elephants gathered outside his fence line, in total silence. They stood there, heads bowed, mourning the man who had saved them. His widow looked out the window in tears, comforted by the giant creature standing guard. They stayed outside his house, keeping a silent vigil for 2 full days, before quietly slipping back into the wild. They had come to say goodbye to their friend. How they knew he had passed remains one of nature's greatest, most beautiful, emotional universe. This brings us to a larger, breathtaking truth about our world. Elephants are not alone in this emotional universe. Across the entire animal kingdom, from the intense loyalty of a pet dog to the mourning howl of a lone wolf in the winter night, we are constantly uncovering signs of deep emotional intelligence. While humans might be the only species that sheds liquid tears purely from an emotional trigger, we are absolutely not the only species that knows what it means to love, to break, and to grieve. Raju's tears back in 2014 may have been a physical biological reaction to dust and stress, but his freedom and his journey to a life completely without chains was a true triumph of the heart. The emotional world of animals is vast, beautiful, and waiting to be discovered. They are watching, they are remembering, and they are feeling. If you want to unlock more secrets of what the creatures around us are truly thinking, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the very next mystery.